Welcome to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture, with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Hello, English learners. Welcome back to the show. My name's Michael, and it's good to see you today. Good to talk with you. Today, I'm going to be talking about the topic of minimalism. Bit of a tongue twister. Minimalism. Topic I love. I'm really passionate about this, and I'm excited to share with you today. So we'll get into that in a second. And I also have my membership to shout out. So if you would like to access online courses, group lessons, podcast transcripts, private podcast feed, many things, then go to levelupenglish.school and then click on the members button at the top. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about it, because I know there's a lot going on over there and you might be wondering, is it for me? Is it useful? And maybe it's not. That's totally fine. But my goal here is to build a community of English learners from all around the world. We support each other, and I am helping you as much as I can over there. So that's my goal, and I hope I'm succeeding. So check that out if you have the time. One thing that I'm doing for free that I don't talk about very often, but I want to remind people, is my email list. So twice a month on Thursday, I send out an email to my email followers. And I put a lot of effort into making this useful. I hope it's useful. The email contains maybe a lesson or some useful motivation for language learning, maybe something on my mind recently that I want to share. And my goal is just to help you in your studies throughout the week. So I send an email with some motivation, a story, perhaps some ideas I've got. I also update you. So if I've got any new lessons for you, new courses or discounts, you will be updated first on these emails. And yeah, there's also a word of the fortnight too. So every email you will learn one new word. And I always recommend people, I encourage people to reply to the emails and talk to me as well. So you can find the email list on the homepage of any of my websites, just levelupenglish.school. Down at the bottom, there should be a way to sign up to the email list. And, well, on YouTube as well, I could shout out my YouTube channel, because I've got a lot of exciting videos coming up there. Recently, I've made a video about England's only island city, where the whole island is a city. Could be interesting. We walk around for the first time. I show you the beauty of this place while giving you an English lesson. I'm doing some live streams, playing some games on YouTube. I made a video walking around London and learning English from street signs as well. So if that sounds interesting, you can just go on YouTube and search. Maybe you can search Level Up English, but if that doesn't work, you can just search English with Michael. You should see my page. But yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I've got lots going on, lots of stuff. So whether you become a member or not, there's always free stuff for you to enjoy as well. Okay, the topic today, as I said, is minimalism. Minimalism is the idea of essentially not owning too many things, having a simple life with less things. That's the idea, I would say. And it's a really important thing for me, because I try my best to be as minimal as possible. Minimalism is the noun. Minimal is an adjective. And yeah, it has many benefits for me. So one podcast I recommend, by the way, if you're kind of interested in this topic, is the Minimalists podcast. I listen to this every week, and it's really nice. And one thing they mention at the start of their episode is minimalism is about living a meaningful life with less. I love that phrase. It's about how can we have meaning in our life, but with less things, less clutter. We'll come back to this word clutter later as well. And I might take it too far, to be honest. I might take it too far. One reason is because I know exactly how many possessions I own. Possessions means things you own, basically. And maybe that's a little bit crazy, a little bit too far. I just find it quite interesting to know how many things I own. And seeing it all on a list kind of allows me to see what I haven't used in a while as well. I kind of like that. And if you're wondering, I think at the moment I have 118 items. It's all of my items, 118. So it's not very much. But I think this is also reflected in the work that I do as well. So I really have this goal to balance high quality with less junk. So I really, really despise having so many pieces of technology, cameras, microphones, all that kind of stuff. So I really try hard to have the bare minimum, but not sacrifice too much on the quality. So for example, I use my phone as a camera. Why do I need a camera when my phone already has a really high quality camera? I've got, 2 microphones. I use my laptop, but I don't have all this crazy setup for podcasting. And I think one reason is because it's really practical for me. I move around a lot, I travel a lot, and it's just not practical to have all this equipment. But I think as well, I'll just explain why it's important to me, and then I'll talk about some more aspects of minimalism. But yeah, I'm not trying to convert anyone. I see it as it brings a lot of meaning and peace to my life, but I know many people would disagree. Many people would say they don't want a life with a small amount of possessions. It's not as good, and that's totally fine. I think everyone's different, right? To each their own. That's a good phrase. To each their own means everyone likes different things, and we should respect that. To each their own. And I like to think of things having hidden costs, right? So, for example, buying a car. I don't own a car. There's also, of course, there's the financial cost. That's huge, especially in London. There's so many costs like insurance, maintenance, petrol, taxes, green taxes, and all this kind of emission tax we have in London, and pay to park, pay to store, and it's crazy the amount of money you have to pay for a car these days. And that might be acceptable for many people. Of course it is, because many people have cars. For me, it's not really acceptable. I can't justify paying all that for something I don't really need at the moment. And what I think many people don't consider are the hidden costs. So for me, there are also costs to mental health. Having a car and all those payments coming out, it's one or a few more things weighing on my mind that I have to worry about and think about and get stressed about. If I go on holiday, is my car okay? Where can I put it? Where can I park it? Is someone going to steal my car? What if it breaks? I've got that stress to deal with if it breaks. All this kind of stuff that I don't want to think about. I feel like my life is much more peaceful without it. And I think it's the same for anything, even a tiny object like, what's something I got rid of recently? I can't think of a good example. I haven't really got rid of anything recently, but let's say something really small, like you have a new video game. Let's say you've got a new PlayStation game to play. It's really small, but that kind of item might be weighing on your mind like 0.1%. And you're thinking in the back of your head, oh, maybe I should play that soon. When can I play it? Or maybe I should go on my laptop and do some work, or should I play it? And it kind of adds another layer of stress to your life. Maybe I'm more sensitive to stress than most people, but I try to keep things simple, and I like my life that way, basically, right? But yes, so minimalism is often associated with having kind of a stark appearance. Stark is a good adjective that means kind of bare in appearance. There's not much going on. So if you go to like an art gallery, you might say, oh, it's quite stark. There's not much going on here. It's very simple. There's not much furniture, maybe just one bench in the middle. It's a stark room. Bare in appearance. This word bare is very useful too. B-A-R-E. It really means like naked. Like if you walk barefoot, it's without shoes and socks. And we can also say the bare necessities or the bare essentials, which is the very, very limit of what you need. So, for example, perhaps an iPhone is not a bare essential. It's not the most essential thing. The bare essentials are, food and water, clothes, maybe somewhere warm to stay. These are the bare essentials that everyone should have, ideally. Bare essentials. But yeah, I don't know why I got into minimalism. I think it was, I don't know. I think I'm very sensitive to clutter. There's that word clutter again. Clutter just means mess. Lots and lots of items displayed in a messy way. So one of my pet peeve is something that really annoys me, a pet peeve, is having a table or a desk with papers all over it. It just really bothers me. And I feel like it really affects my mood. Just having all these cluttered papers really makes me feel more stressed and anxious. I'm very sensitive to that. So surprisingly, as a teacher, I don't own a single piece of paper. My work is 100% digital. I'm quite proud of that. I don't own any paper. And again, that's not saying that people shouldn't. Just for me, I'm a bit crazy and I don't want to. And with this word clutter, by the way, we can also say to declutter. D-E, means take away. So declutter just means tidy, really, to declutter. So I love decluttering. I really love it. I love packing suitcases for holidays. I love tidying the kitchen, like taking out all the food, cleaning, putting it back. I love that kind of stuff. I always think if I wasn't, let's use a good conditional here, if I hadn't become an English teacher, I might have become a professional declutterer, if there is such a thing. I always find it so enjoyable to declutter and tidy. And the really sad thing is now, I don't have anything to declutter. Everything I own, I kind of enjoy and I use almost on a daily basis. So I don't really have anything to get rid of, which is kind of sad. But if you have a messy house, let me know. I'll come and tidy it for you. But yeah, when was the last time you decluttered? And maybe you've got like a space in your home that you need to declutter. You've been putting it off, delaying it for some reason. But maybe you can put on my podcast, listen to me talk, and declutter at the same time. So it's kind of like multitasking. That's what I like to do with podcasts. We can also use the verb to minimize. Minimize. We use this on computers as well. So when you go on your desktop, say your internet browser, there are usually 3 buttons in the top corner. One is the cross, the close window button. One would be to kind of exit the full screen view. And the other one is minimize, which doesn't close your window, but it makes it smaller and puts it into the bottom in your taskbar of your computer. So that's called minimize button. But generally, minimize just means to reduce the amount of things that you own, to minimize. Another good word for this is downsizing. Downsizing. So you're sizing down. Usually, I think downsizing is used for people who move from a large house to a smaller house. And this is like a trend that is becoming more popular these days. Downsizing, perhaps for financial reasons, because the housing market is always rising, and also just for simplicity, reasons of simplicity, because I think more and more people are realizing that having these big houses with all this clutter is leading to some unnecessary stress for some people again. So people like to downsize, people like to minimize. This suffix "ise," ise or ize in American English, is kind of like to make. Minimize, to make minimal, minimize. I guess another thing that people do is it's the tiny house movement. Have you heard of tiny houses before? So the tiny house movement is, I guess it's kind of self-explanatory, isn't it? It's people moving to very, very small houses. And there's a really amazing YouTube channel, which I recommend. It's so nice. It's just kind of relaxing to watch. Anyway, I think it's called Living Big in a Tiny House. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But it's an amazing channel, and it shows people that maybe they're moving from these huge houses to these little tiny simple ones, and they're always so, so beautiful. I would love to live in a tiny house one day. Who knows if I'll do it? Maybe I never will, but it could be possible one day. So this word minimalism, I suppose it originally came from the art style, the artistic style, I think. And there's two adjectives we can use. We can say minimalistic or minimalist. I feel like these are quite similar, but generally, minimalist is a person. Not always, but generally. Minimalistic is describing the way of being minimal. So I like to be minimalistic. I am a minimalist, we could say. Minimalist, I suppose, in this case is a noun, but I think sometimes it could be an adjective too. But yeah, usually this is like the art style. You know, I went to Tate Modern Art Gallery a few weeks ago, and they had a lot of minimalistic pieces of art. I really appreciated, actually. I didn't think I would, but I really saw the beauty in having these pieces of art, the minimalistic art style. Minimal, this adjective minimal, can just describe having a small number of things, the lowest possible, right? So I like to live with a minimal amount of things. Yeah, so lots of adjectives, but hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you think simplifying your life would be useful. Simplify. This suffix "fi" again kind of means to make something simple. Simplify, make simple. So how could you simplify your life? I think there's many areas that I'm trying to focus on myself, because especially when your work and your life are kind of in the same place, like me, I'm working from home all the time, it's very easy for life to get out of control. So I try to simplify as much as I can. One example is in my home. Everything I try to keep it in its special space. You know, I don't like to have clutter on the shelves behind me. I try to keep it simplified. Technology as well. So I try to simplify my technology as much as I can, where I don't have to worry about things. My home screen is always very simple. I personally like to have all my apps on one page. So it's just my preference, but on my phone, I don't like to have many, many pages of apps. I have one page where I can see all of my apps. So it's simplified for me. I like that. Set up like automatic processes, I think is really handy. So another worry or cause for anxiety that many people have is, what would happen if my computer broke? I would lose so many photos. I would lose all my work. What would happen? And I think people have this worry in the back of their head, but many people don't do anything about it. Many people don't prepare for that. And I really love the expression, the phrase, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Right? And I try to live my life by that, preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. And one way in which I do this is I've automated my backups. So every day, my computer is backed up to the internet, and to an external hard drive. So I've got 2 backups. So if my computer breaks, I've got 2 ways to get my content back. And it's just peace of mind. I don't have to worry about it. It's all automatic. And yeah, I don't have to worry about losing my photos or my lesson plans. And it's nice to simplify my technology in that way. Perhaps a more controversial one is simplifying your relationships. Right? I think you can also simplify relationships because many of us have superfluous relationships. So this means like we have many people around us, friends, acquaintances, who actually they're not bringing any value to our life. Maybe they're even draining our lives. And it's not really healthy to have a relationship that way, I would say. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but I think it's much more important to have a few close, good friends rather than trying to cling to everything, to hold on to everyone. And in the past, I've had to let go of some relationships, some friendships where perhaps we weren't true friends, we didn't really speak unless we were going out drinking or something like that. And I think many of us have friends like that where we're not really friends, we just kind of do similar things. But when you think about it, you don't actually enjoy being with that person. And I've tried my best to simplify my relationships, not cutting out people I really enjoy spending time with. But, life is short and you don't really want to spend all your time on people who drain your energy, maybe negative people or toxic people, right? So there's one thing you could simplify. And maybe finally, another phrase I love to live by is, so there's a documentary and a book by Marie Kondo, who is the Japanese minimalist who got very famous in the past few years for her documentary. I forget what it's called. Yeah, she's a very calming kind of person and she is very minimal. And, some people think she's a bit extreme in some ways, but one phrase that really sticks out to me and many other people that she said was, pick something up and think to yourself, does it spark joy? Does it spark joy? And I love that phrase. Spark, by the way, spark means like to cause a reaction, like to spark a fire, to spark joy. It brings up joy, happiness inside me. And it sounds a bit strange, but I like to feel this way with everything. So even if I'm kind of folding my clothes, I pick up each item of clothing and I'm kind of, I'm happy. I'm so happy I've got these socks. They keep my feet warm, they're good quality. It's not exactly like joy, like, yes, I love these socks, but it's like gratitude, perhaps. And it's not taking my possessions for granted. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. But on the other hand, I do think there's a balance between not clinging to your possessions. Maybe clinging is like holding on tightly to something, not clinging to them, but also caring for them an appropriate amount. So there's that balance there. If you cling too strongly, you're afraid to lose anything, right? And if there was a fire, actually, this is a good rule that they talk about on the Minimalists podcast, where they talk about the spontaneous combustion rule. Spontaneous means random. Combustion means catching on fire. So they talk about, imagine if all of your possessions randomly caught on fire and they were destroyed. Well, firstly, how would you feel, right? I think my goal is to not feel too upset if that were to happen, right? If all my things caught on fire, I like to think I would have the attitude, it's a bit inconvenient, but you know what? It's just things. It's not the end of the world. Everything can be replaced. I'm not so attached to my things. However, I do appreciate my things. There's that balance, right? But the other thing they talk about is, if all your things were destroyed in a fire, what items would you replace? If there are some items that you wouldn't replace, then why do you have them now? Because it's probably taking up that mental space in your mind. Maybe for some people, it's not the case. Maybe some people, they don't mind having things they wouldn't replace. But for me, I like to live by this rule and think, if I wouldn't replace it if there was a fire, I don't need to have it now. No. I'll leave it there today. I've rambled on for quite a long time. I guess it's because I like this topic, but I hope you bared with me and I hope you found it enjoyable too to hear my ramblings today. And I'd love to hear what you think about minimalism. Do you think it's useful for you? Do you consider yourself to be a minimalist? Or do you think it's kind of pointless? Maybe you're a hoarder. That's the other extreme I forgot to mention. If you hoard, it's like you collect many, many items and it's kind of a problem. You have too many things. So there's hoarder and minimalist, kind of two sides of that scale. But yes. But okay, yeah. So as I said last week, upcoming on the private podcast soon, I'll be talking about changes I'm making this year, how I'm living more simply this year. So it kind of somewhat relates to the topic today of minimalism. And that's on the private podcast you can find if you become a member at Level Up English. And let's end today with a quote. Actually, let's do one review before we get there. I forgot. So I've got one review here from BXNXJXZ. I'm guessing that's not your name. Maybe you just punched the keyboard. And they said, "Hi, I hope you're doing good. I just wanted to let you know that I'm learning English so that I can do the IELTS exam. I've listened to your podcast and it's really, really helpful. I've got some new vocabulary now and I'm now confident when I speak English. You are literally making my future. So I thank you for that. I really appreciate you and your hard work. Thank you so much and stay safe and happy." Wow. I'm making your future. I don't believe that. I always think if any of you are finding my podcast beneficial, it's really you guys doing the hard work. You're taking the time to listen and study and improve your English. All I'm doing really is speaking to you. But I do appreciate that so much and it really motivates me to make more episodes. So thank you to the reviews. I really appreciate them and it gives me that motivation. So thank you so much. The quote to end with today is from Anne Patchett, who said, "One must not be shy where language is concerned." I don't know what the context for this quote was, but it's a nice reminder. When you're practicing a language, don't be shy. I know it's easier said than done. Make mistakes, be silly, be stupid. That's how you learn, right? Don't be shy. Keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening today. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great week. Goodbye. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.